Welcome back to another video about how to heal adoption and narcissistic abuse. If you're new to my channel, my name is Lærke Theodora. I work as a spiritual and psychological counselor, and I'm an adoptee myself. I'm really excited about this video because we're going to talk about the narcissistic adoptive family, and we're going to talk about some of the signs we all should be looking for. And we're gonna go through 6 signs, 6 red flags, as we always say when we're talking about dating a narcissistic person. We're gonna go through 6 red flags in a narcissistic adoptive family. I hope after watching this video that you have gained some clarity about whether your adoptive family have narcissistic tendencies, because I know that it can be so difficult to distinguish between what is normal behavior, what is toxic behavior, when are someone being abused, when are they not being abused, where is the adoption inflicting it, and it's just not easy. So the first sign we can look for is if the adoptive parents are making you responsible for how they feel. This can be if you come home one day when you were a child, you went to school, you came home, you had a great day, you were in a good mood, you were singing, you were happy, and then you meet your adoptive parents and they had a shitty day. They had a really, really bad day. Maybe they got fired from their job. Maybe they didn't get the car that they were looking for. Maybe someone bullied them at work. Or maybe they just didn't feel good about themselves, because that's how most narcissistic people feel inside. They don't feel good about themselves, and that's what they're trying to hide. So you come home, you are in a good mood, you have a great day, you want to share that with your parents, and they immediately attack you, or they indirectly attack you, and they begin blaming you for being in a good mood. You're not allowed to be in a good mood, and you should actually stop singing, you should stop smiling, you should stop being happy. They're dropping mean comments, and they are just making you feel wrong for how you are feeling. And then if you get upset, they're twisting it. They're making it all about them, that they feel so sad, and they're like, poor me, I had a bad day, and you don't see it, and you don't do anything to fix it, and you just come here and expect me to be happy when I'm not happy. And then you're being made responsible for how they feel. And you are definitely not allowed to feel the way you feel, whether you came home in a good mood, or in a bad mood, or in an irritated mood, or sad mood. They're gonna make it all about them. They're gonna make you move your attention from yourself onto them instead. And you're gonna be more focused on how they feel and to make them in a better mood. So it's kind of like becoming your responsibility without you even aware of it. It's becoming your responsibility to make them feel good and to make up for the bad day that they had. And this is where, if we're talking about an adoptive parent that were not narcissistic, then these type of parents, they would know, they would recognize, okay, I have a bad day, but it's not my child's fault that I have a bad day. I just have a bad day. And even though they ended up letting it out on you once or twice, they still have the ability to reflect and realize, but it's still not my child's fault. Okay, I let it out on my child this time because I was completely on my knees, and I did not have the self-control that I should have had. So they're able to reflect on their behavior. They're able to reflect on how are their behavior making you feel. where a narcissistic adoptive parent would never be able to even go to that reflective state within their mind and even reflect on how is my behavior affecting my child, because now my child is crying because I just yelled at my child, and I shouldn't have done that because it's not my child's fault that I had a bad day. This is where we can distinguish between a non-narcissistic adoptive parent and a narcissistic adoptive parent. The second sign that we can look out for in narcissistic adoptive parents is that these type of parents, they most likely need to be admired by others. And this means that they would choose careers, jobs where they are being admired naturally. So they would choose leader jobs. They would choose jobs where they are doing an amazing job to save other people, or they are making a lot of money, and through that they feel superior to other people. Because narcissistic adoptive parents, they are very driven by money, the prestige that money gives them. The more money they have, the better they feel about themselves, and the better their image is, which is also why a lot of narcissistic adoptive parents, they choose to adopt children. Because first of all, it costs a lot of money. They had to go through a lot of processes, a lot of paperwork, a lot of adjustment, and they had to open their home to a stranger. They had to open their home to someone else's child. And that looks very, very good in other people's eyes, because it makes them seem selfless when they take in another woman's child and open their home for this child. And it's often a child in need, not always, but sometimes. They will look so good in other people's eyes because it will make them look selfless when they choose to adopt someone else's child. It will actually make them look like they are not narcissistic. So this is one of the areas in adoption where narcissistic adoptive parents can really, really hide behind the whole setup, behind the whole constellation of adopting someone else's child and opening your home and opening your heart for them and being their parent. And a lot of narcissistic adoptive parents are really benefiting from this. I have really talked with a lot of adopted people that have heard the same stories. They have watched their adoptive parents talk about how difficult it was to adopt them, how much paperwork they had to go through, how much money they had to pay, the long flight to another country to pick up the child, or the difficult process of talking with the birth mother and convince her and all that stuff. And I think one thing that can help a lot for you to when you're distinguishing between this is that if you have a feeling inside that you feel like they are taking advantage, they are benefiting, they're gaining something from telling this story of adopting you, then you can trust that 100%, because a normal empathic person would never benefit from someone else's loss. They would never benefit from the extreme pain and trauma that someone else went through when they were a child. They would not even talk about it like that, because they would have so much respect for what that person went through in their childhood that they would never throw them under that bus like that. that they would never misuse that to their own benefit, to put themselves on a pedestal and to make themselves look successful in other people's eyes. So sometimes when we are distinguishing or investigating, could my adoptive parents have narcissistic tendencies, we should actually use our logical mind, because a lot of it doesn't make any sense. You can even ask yourself, as the empathic person that you are, you can ask yourself, if I was adoptive, if I was an adoptive parent, how would I talk about my child's adoption? How would I talk about the processes that I had to go through, the money that I paid, maybe the long flight to another country? How would I talk about that in order to still respect what my child went through? The moment you reflect on that, and the moment you can really hear that story within yourself, and the moment you can hear how you would tell this story, and then compare it with how your adoptive parents are talking about this. If it's too far away from each other, from matching, there's something there you need to look out for. I would say that there is some kind of red flag waving in the wind that you need to look into, because this is not how we treat other people. We are not benefiting when we talk about that. If we are putting ourselves in the front line on the scene and we are making it all about us, what we went through as adoptive parents, how difficult it was for us, and completely neglecting what our child went through, because they are the ones who went through that. They went through the loss, the separation, the pain, the trauma, not the adoptive parents. They didn't went through anything. They had to come up with a lot of money, and maybe they had to fly across the world, but that's it. That's it. They are not traumatized because they adopted you. They're not. That cannot traumatize them. It just can't. So I hope that clarifies something about if your adoptive parents have this need to be admired by others, then there is something there you should look out for. The third sign, third red flag to look out for is how your adoptive parents are talking about you when you're alone with them, and how they are talking about you when you are not with them, like how they're talking about you with other people when you are not present. Maybe you have experienced that you met someone of your parents' friends and they recently met your adoptive parents, and the friends are coming and saying, I'm so happy that you're gonna study in the fall, or I'm so happy you got that job, that sounds so amazing, you deserve it. And your mom says that she's so proud of you and she just wants to support you all that she can. If you heard something like that, but you experienced that your adoptive parents were treating you completely differently behind closed doors, where they were not supporting that you're gonna study in the fall, they are not supporting the job that you got, and they are not supporting any of your dreams or hopes or plans that you have for the future, and you don't have any sense that they are gonna support whatever it is that you're doing. In fact, maybe they are doing the opposite. Maybe they have said, you should never study that, you're never gonna get a job, that study is not worth studying and you shouldn't pay for that, or that kind of job is not good and they're not gonna pay you enough and you're gonna work your ass off. And if it's not matching what your adoptive parents are saying when you're not present, what they're saying to other people about you, then there's something there to look out for, because it it shows that they have multiple faces, multiple masks that they are putting on depending on the circumstances. So they are adjusting which kind of mask that they're putting on depending on who they're talking to. And what a lot of adopted people I have worked with have come and said to me is that they realized in their teens or early adulthood, the way that they were being treated at home when no one was watching was so horrible compared to how their adoptive parents were treating them when they were together with other family members, when they were at social gatherings, or what their adoptive parents was saying about them to other people when they were not present. And it kind of dawned on them that their adoptive parents were like playing this double game. They were like having multiple stories going on at the same time, and none of the stories that were told in public matched how the adopted people were experiencing at home. It was not matching at all. And it was almost like they were shocked to hear how their parents were talking about them to other people, because their adoptive parents never talked to them like that when they were alone. They never even said any of those sentences. So in other words, when words are not matching actions, there is something there. There is a secret agenda. There's something that they are benefiting from by not telling the same story, by having different stories. There's something they're benefiting from. They want to control the other people's perception of them, because the more positive the adoptive parents can talk about their child, the more positive will other people think of them. Because then the other people will think, oh, these adoptive parents are so amazing. Oh my God, they sacrificed so much for their child, and now they're supporting that they're going studying, or they got a new job, or they are following their dreams. And I just admire these adoptive parents so much. They're sacrificing everything. That's what they want. That's what they want to gain from telling other stories to other people about you. That's what they want to gain. It's nothing about you. It's all about them. It's all about, look at me. I'm so amazing. I'm an amazing adoptive parent. I sacrificed my whole life for this child. And I want the whole world to think that as well. The fourth sign, fourth red flag to look out for in your adoptive parents is a lot of adoptees have come to me and said that the adoptive parents were justifying the way they were abusing them, the pain that they were causing them, by saying, but you were already broken before we adopted you. That's why you are so messed up. That's why you have so much trauma. That's why you are so lost in your life. That's why you don't know who you are. That's why you can't figure out how to stand up for yourself, set boundaries, live your life like normal people. That's why you can't get a degree. That's why you can't get a normal job, because you were already broken before we even adopted you. That is one of the most common narcissistic traits I have seen in my work with adopted people. The adoptive parents are gonna use the adoption against you. They're gonna say you were broken before they even adopted you, because in that way they can run away from all the responsibility. They can deny what they have exposed you to, what they put you through. They can deny everything that you might come and say to them in the future about, why did you not show up for me there? Why did you not support me there? Why did you put me through all that pain? Why did you make me responsible for your emotions? Why do you never take responsibility for anything you have done to me that hurt me so badly? They are just gonna say, because you were broken before we even adopted you. So get your shit together, honey. That's what they're gonna say, because they have created this amazing, thick story. It's almost like a shell they can hide behind, because this whole adoption story about how much they went through to adopt you, all that stuff that I mentioned previously, they can use that as this shell to protect themselves from anything you're gonna come and say to them in the future. Because what's so messed up about narcissistic adoptive parents is that they actually believe that they're good people. They believe that they are heroes because they adopted you. That's what's so messed up, and that's where we will never really get that recognition from them. They would never acknowledge and take any responsibility for what they have done to you. And that is the hardest part ever. And we're gonna dive into that in another video. But this is what they do. They use your adoption against you. And again, like I said previously, if we think about it logically, no empathic person would do that to another person. Ask yourself if you would do that. You would not, right? You would never, ever even think about doing that. So that sign is a huge red flag. It's probably one of the biggest red flags I have seen in narcissistic adoptive parents. It's a very, very concerning flag to me, because it completely messes up the adopted person's mind and their perception of what's going on, their perception of their reality, how they're feeling, how they're sensing, what they're thinking. It is such a severe mind control that we can't even fathom the consequences, the long-term consequences it has for adopted people. The fifth sign to look out for in your adoptive parents is, are you scared of them? Are you scared of your adoptive parents? Are you afraid of how they are going to react when you come home and you share something with them? Are you afraid to be honest? Are you afraid to be authentic? Are you afraid of showing your emotions to them? Are you afraid of what they're going to say to you if you say no to them? Are you afraid of their reaction if you set a boundary with them? Are you afraid of even setting a boundary with them? This is, again, like the previous sign, this is something I just keep seeing over and over and over with the people that I work with. I also saw it very, very clearly in a group course that I did for adopted people in dysfunctional adoptive families. They all shared that they were so afraid of their parents, and they grew up, they couldn't even recall not being afraid of their parents because they were constantly afraid of them. And they felt like they had to walk on eggshells, and that they always had to be on guard. They always had to screen their parents when they entered the room. They always had to screen their parents and be like, what mood is he in? What mood is he in? Okay, he did that with his eye. Okay, so, okay, he might be very, very aggressive today, or she didn't say hello in the same tone that she used to. Okay, something is off. She's gonna explode in a minute. She's gonna yell at me, or she's gonna come with a mean comment. Again, we have to look at this logically, no child should ever be afraid of their parents, not even their adoptive parents. It's just not supposed to be like that. It's not accepted. There is something wrong. And I wish that more professionals, teachers, kindergarten teachers, all kind of professional people in public service jobs, they would notice this. And when they notice this, it would ring a red bell because it's a huge red flag. We should never be afraid of our parents. We should never be afraid of our adoptive parents. So if you have experienced that you were afraid of them, or maybe still are afraid of them, ask yourself, what were you most afraid of? What was it that made you afraid of them? Was it because they were unpredictable? They were unreliable? They were always in this unpredictable mood, and they could switch their mood very, very fast from being happy to be very mean, very aggressive. This is a sign that is non-negotiable. It's a huge red flag. It should be taken very seriously. And I know some people would say, oh, but if someone was already adopted, they must be so scared already because they have lost so much and they went through so much trauma. And that's correct, that adopted people have a more heightened anxiety level present in them. They are switching more often into fight-flight mode than non-adopted people. Yes, they carry a lot of trauma, but I have also worked with adopted people who did not grow up in narcissistic family, and they were not afraid of their adoptive parents. They were not afraid of them. They were afraid that the adoptive parents would abandon them, but that is something else. That is isolated to the experience of being adopted. It's not related to the adoptive parent's behavior towards the adopted child. The sixth sign, the sixth red flag to look out for is the relationship your adoptive parents have with money and you. What we need to understand about narcissistic adoptive parents is that money is power, money is success, money is prestige, money equals control over other people. So if you have found yourself in a situation where your adoptive parents wanted to give you some money because you were in a difficult situation, or they just gave you money randomly out of nowhere and you took it, and then you experienced later on that when they needed something from you that you were not necessarily supposed to give them, but because they are narcissistic, they feel like you owe them everything. And it was almost like they could pull up this list of things they have done for you and be like, but I paid for your education, and I paid for your last dentist appointment. I paid for your winter shoes so you would not freeze. I paid your parking ticket. I lent you money so you could buy a car. And you are like, why are you bringing this up now? But it's like the narcissistic adoptive parents, they keep a record of everything they have done for you and everything they have given you, every little effort they have done to help you, support you, quote unquote, support you, right? And the moment you're not giving them what they want, they're gonna pull that list up in front of you and say, I gave you all these things. I give you everything. And this is what you're giving me back. You are so ungrateful. I should never have adopted you. I should never have given any of these things to you because you are so selfish and you don't think about anyone but yourself. That is something a lot of adopted people have experienced. Again, we need to look at this logically. If we were dealing with a sympathetic, caring, loving, adoptive parent, they would never expect anything back from you after they gave you money to these things, and they would never use it against you. They would never use it to justify that now you have to do this for them. They would never do that. It can also be things that is not about money. It can also be that maybe you bought a house with your boyfriend and they came and helped you paint the walls. And the next thing is that they're gonna call you and they are gonna say, oh, by the way, we need the whole garden to be reorganized. I'm so sorry, but I'm in the middle of constructing my house, so I'm not able to help you at this moment. And then they're gonna use it against you, and they're gonna be like, but we came and painted your walls, and this is how ungrateful you are. They would say stuff like that, and it can be so many other scenarios where you're just being overwhelmed with this feeling of not being a good person, because that's what they want to make you feel. They want you to feel like you've done something wrong because you're setting a boundary and you're saying no. It's something to really look out for, because if you're dealing with an adoptive parent who are just the slightest narcissistic, don't take their money. Don't ever take their money. And if you have already done it, do everything to detach, to close whatever money you have between them. If you have lent money from them, pay them back ASAP. And they're probably not gonna take it back. They're probably gonna be like, oh, it's not in a rush and it's all right, don't worry, honey, because they are gonna use it against you. That's why they lent you the money in the first place. So if they don't have anything on you financially, they can't use it against you to get what they want. Don't involve money in the relationship with your narcissistic adoptive parents if they are narcissistic. There are so many more red flags I want to dive into, but I'm gonna save it for another video. I hope these 6 signs could give you some kind of clarification about your narcissistic adoptive parents, whether they are it or not, because it's difficult to navigate through. It requires recognition and understanding of their dysfunctional, abusive patterns. And this is something we don't necessarily need to understand to the same degree with other kind of relational trauma. But when we're dealing with a narcissistic caregiver, parent, adoptive parent, we really need to understand how they have abused us. We need to understand the patterns. And no matter how disgusting it is and how bad we feel by realizing this and how much it makes our stomach contract, it's actually necessary, because otherwise we won't realize how dangerous they are to us, and that we are actually the sane ones and they are the mental ones. I'm gonna send you all my support and all my love. I know this is not difficult if you have went through this, and I believe in you big time, and you are gonna make it. Just stay true to yourself. No matter what happens, stay true to yourself, and you have every right to set all the boundaries that you want, and you have every right to not respond or reply anyone you don't want to respond or reply to. Until then, I wish you an amazing day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye for now.